The old man then rearranged the platforms. He told me to try to reach the other end of the room without touching the floor. Heather said the floor's made of lava. But when I smiled at her, she just frowned and looked away.
Welcome back. We are a pixelated channel about free pixelated games from Epic.
What?
Because
What?
because
Yeah,
50% of the free games from Epic, they are pixelated, and there's another one, and it's a platformer. So
it's
kind of a deja vu.
I don't like to complain too much because they're free games. Many of them are still good,
Yes.
but yeah, Epic, there are other types of games than pixelated platformers. I promise you there are other options, so maybe mix it up a little bit. But this week they did not mix it up. It is another pixelated platformer.
So let's see if it's good or not.
That's the
This
key.
game is called Horace, and it's about a robot that just was born in the hands of his human father. So there's a really appealing story, and I think it's a good story. But it's a really story-based game. It's more of a
all about the story.
It's probably more of the story than as a platformer.
I think that's something very important to know coming into this game is that if you're just coming for the platforming, it might not satisfy you because there's a lot of cutscenes. They might be a little bit too long, but the key is that
There's a lot of platforming, but still, maybe more story. I don't know.
I think the most appealing thing about this game is the story, but you have to be ready to invest in it. It's a rather long story. It develops, well, slowly, but also suddenly. And that's why you should consider playing this game if you do, is be ready to invest in the story, because it has some really touching, beautiful moments.
And I think the beginning is a good one because it works as a tutorial, but it's like kind of logical because you were just born, so you need to learn things, and your human father will gonna put other like discs into you to improve you, so you have suddenly other special abilities. But everything changes really soon, and maybe the spoiler alert now thing of yours would be nice.
Spoiler alert!
Everything's gonna change a bit too soon, maybe, because
Everything's going very pleasantly.
Yeah.
You're with a family. There's some strange characters. You bond with them, and then suddenly,
suddenly you freeze, and suddenly a few years later,
well, maybe hundreds of years later, we
Or
don't really
maybe
know,
that,
but
I don't know.
suddenly it's post-apocalyptic.
and the robot's fighting humans, and you are the robot, but you are a good one.
And you like humans.
Yeah.
This leads to a conflict. And every good story is based on conflict. So then you go on from there. The gameplay changes very suddenly, and not only changes, but it actually becomes many very different types of games.
It's true. It's got even like 3D little missions and some cycle missions.
There's mini games that are directly from the games of the 80s and 90s.
And I don't say levels, but missions, because it's really more about the story. So I really had the feeling that I want to complete what they want me to do, because it's more about the story. It's not just levels. It's not.
This is where it kind of lost me, I have to say, because in fact, it lost me a little bit on both sides, the story side and the gameplay side. Sometimes I just wanted to play, and the cutscenes could be really long. The visuals are not great, especially when it zooms in really close to a pixelated face, and you see like
Especially from the beginning.
3 pixels trying to make a human expression. It just doesn't work.
But when it goes the other side, when it zoom out,
Why not?
it looks really nice.
It works.
Yeah.
But sometimes that kind of lost me and seemed to change up the pace of the gameplay. But then other times,
Maybe it got you because you played some games. So there's a lot of old, like retro games in this game. And you can even go later in the game into the arcade shop, and you can play all these like arcades.
this is the thing. Me personally, I am not nostalgic for the old 80s and 90s games. I spent a lot of time on them when I was a kid. I see
Now
no
you're
reason-
done with them.
I'm done with them. I see no. There are
Okay.
better games. We've moved forward.
Especially we had so many pixelated, you're done.
They're a little bit pixelated platformer fatigue. Yeah, I can say that. Now, there is nothing wrong with being nostalgic, and if you are, that is definitely one of the reasons to play this game. It is not my case, and this was something, a negative point for me for this game.
Sometimes you say there's too many diversity in the game.
Yeah, it's trying to be too many things.
But it is this case too. But for me this time it works because it's all for the story, and I don't mind the gameplay changes because there's
it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. There's a variation in it, so you don't get bored so easily. But yeah, it's definitely not for everybody.
So it sounds like you're quite in support of this game. You would recommend it to everyone?
Definitely not everyone, but it really got me personally. So I would like people to try it out. I know it could be hard because of the pixelated beginning and a lot of cutscenes, but I feel like this is a great world, and more people should know about the game for the story and for the world. So for that, I would recommend. And there's one special thing on the platformers that is not so usual. The bosses are quite unique. And there's
a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts. And there's one really unique thing, and that is if it's really too hard, and sometimes it is challenging, maybe too hard. After you die 8 times, you get another lives. After you die another 8 times, you get another. And with 2 extra life, you can really beat any level quite easily. So it helps you to continue in the story even if it gets too hard. So that's really nice.
It's true. This is an interesting mechanic. I have to admit I'm on the other side, and I feel a little bit bad about this because it is unique. I admire the creativity, but the story starts very interesting, but it's so drawn out. It's a very long game, considering what it is. It can take between 20 and 30 hours to finish it. So remember that going in.
It's really gone. As you said, it's a really game about creativity. So that's why I like it, because it's not so lined. You cannot really expect the things that are happening there.
Since the main thing that kept me going into it was the story, I wish that it had given a more compact story with just a beginning, middle, and end with a message and an experience, but it started to feel very drawn out. The gameplay, it's just personal. I'm not nostalgic for these old games, and I'm not a big fan of platformers, as anyone in this watching this channel knows. Therefore, taking all of that together, it's not for me.
Okay, that's fair. I'm not a big fan too, but I would still recommend this game, but of course not to everybody.
We can agree to disagree.
Sure.
But now you have to tell us with whom you agree. Have you played this game? What do you think? Are you going to play it based on our different recommendations?
And more pixelated games, and maybe not even pixelated, but probably yes, more games are coming. But they are for free, so stay tuned, subscribe, hit the bell button if you want to be notified about the free games.
And you should definitely get notified, because these games are available from the Epic Games Store for a limited amount of time.
Only 1 week.
Yeah. So you should click the notification so you get a notification and don't miss any of these free games.
And don't miss us. So see you next time.
The screaming was coming from one of the bedrooms, but the stairs were blocked by a wall of fire.